Hey guys, it's Ryan over here at Mueller Performance. Just want to show you, I've had a lot of people ask, how to go through and set preload with adjustable Crowler shaft rockers. So figured I'd take a minute to show you how to do this in a video. It's one of the simplest things you'll ever do because you can actually control your preload versus having to have it exact with a push rod link and a non-adjustable rocker. So a few simple things you want to do to make sure that you don't break the shafts on this thing. First thing you're going to do is make sure that your push rods are seated properly down in the lifter, which I've done that already. So we know that our push rods are seated down in the lifter properly. And the next thing that we want to do is run it through a cycle where you'll see both of them open and close and then come back down where they're at their lowest spot at the same time. This is for installing the rockers. So I'm going to put a ratchet on the crank and roll it over. You see the one push rod coming up, this guy right here. Now you see it going back down. Now you see the other push rod coming up, this guy right here. Now you see it going back down. Okay, so now we've got both of those all the way down. We'll finish with our firing event on that cylinder. So the next thing we want to do is make sure that we lubricate the push rod seat and the tips of the push rods. Assembly lube is a great thing. I use Moly EP, but you can also use engine oil to do that. So lubricate it here. Go ahead and lubricate your wheels real good on the rollers. And I'll put a little dab right here too, which looks like I did not already do. That's actually what is going to oil your trunnion. So I'll just squirt a little bit right here like this and then just kind of work it in. Okay, so now you've got that done. And also put ARP Ultra Torque right here where those bolts seat that bolts it down to the shaft. So now we're ready to put the stand on. So we want to make sure that our push rod is seated in this cup of this adjuster on both of them. And then keep them pushed down like this on both of them. And align your bolt hole, make sure all that's perfectly lined up. And now you can take and put your bolts in. Which with those bolts, of course, I've already got it where it's going to seat at, but I like to put a little bit on the threads too, just to make sure there's no binding where you get accurate torque measurements. So you can see, we'll do that. And we're just going to barely run them down with a impact driver set on its lowest setting at just a screw setting basically. Do not impact it, just barely let it screw down to just make that a more efficient process. If you don't feel comfortable with the impact driver you've got, then just use a freaking old ratchet. Nothing wrong with that. That's the safest way to go, but I'm used to doing it this way for time purposes. So what we're going to do is torque the middle one down first. So we're tightening the middle one first. Then we go outside. Then we go outside. Okay? So now we're going to switch over to our torque wrench. We're going to set it on 28 foot-pounds. And follow that same order. Do the middle one first. Outside. And outside. Now I always use Marksall paint markers just to know that I've torqued stuff, because you get busy, whatever happens, and you're like, dang, did I torque that or not? If you mark it with that paint marker, you know you torqued it. So that's a really good practice to keep. Okay, now that we got both of them seated down on the push rod, we got the shaft torqued down. we're going to roll the engine over until one of the valves is on that pair is open halfway. All right, so you see how that's open about halfway right there. So what that means is that this rocker right here is now on the base circle. So now, first thing we're going to do is come down and find 0 lash. And the easiest way to do that is going to be to use a feeler gauge, because you can pick it up and see if it rocks and moves like that, but as it gets tighter down there, it's really hard to feel it. So what I'll typically do is take and just turn this by hand and have a feeler gauge in there. See when I start getting friction? Okay, now it's getting tight. Now I pull it back, just barely tighten it a little bit more. Now the feeler gauge won't go. That's a 1/1000th feeler gauge, okay? You can do 1, 1.5 right in there, and that'll get you close to where you need to be. So now what we need is our ratchet and a 7/16 wrench, okay? So you can run this nut down a little bit closer once you've kind of gotten to that point. Just make sure you don't move the adjuster. Put your wrench on here like this, your little 7/16. Now, take your ratchet, put it in the on tightening location, and you see where I'm starting right here. So I want to go half a turn because these are short travel lifters. So I'm going half. Right there is where I stop. Now flip your ratchet to the off position and keep it held right there as you tighten this nut. That way it'll keep the nut from actually turning the adjuster, and it'll go back against it in the opposite direction as you hold it in place. So now we're going to tighten this down. Okay. Got that pretty snug right there. Now we're going to take our torque wrench with a 7/16 socket, and we're going to set it to 22 foot-pounds. Okay, and like I was saying, always good practice to mark them so you know which ones you've done. All right, now that side's done. Now let's roll it over and do the exhaust. See that? Intake valve's halfway open. All right, so now we're going to get our feeler gauge again. We're on the base circle because this is half open on the intake side. So now we're doing the exhaust. All right, so let's turn that. Sometimes it'll be backed all the way out. You got to use a ratchet to break it loose at first, and then you can use the fine feel of your hand. So we're doing that. Okay. Now let's turn this. There's starting to get the friction right there. Now just a little bit more. Stop right there. Make sure I got some play with the adjuster nut. Now I'll get my 7/16 wrench. Gonna put it on that nut. Take the Allen head. Gonna give it a half a turn. So see, we started over here. We're turning it over here. Now flip it back to the off position and tighten with that 7/16 wrench while you keep it in place. So there's that. Now we've got our 7/16 socket. We're set at 22 foot-pounds. And we're good to go. If you hit 24, don't worry about it. 22 to 24 is fine. Some guys even like to go more because they've had them come off a time or two. But typically 22 works pretty good for me. So mark that, and now we're done. So that's pretty much it. Now one thing you can do if you just want to feel good about things is just kind of rotate it over while you watch everything and make sure nothing's binding up. And once you've done that, you kind of get the feel for everything. You know everything looks good and happy. You can put your covers back on and you're ready to go racing. But if you got any more questions, just let me know, guys. Thank you.